If you think the writing life's a boring life, you haven't met Gwen Hunter. Meet her coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Wordsmith on Oak Street in Myrtle Beach. We're focused on the 13th annual South Carolina Writers Workshop Writing Conference, which was held at Ocean Creek Resort last month in Myrtle Beach. And we're visiting with Mary Eaddy, the president of the Wordsmith. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Greg.
Thanks so much for being with us this morning. Thanks so much for hosting us at your amazing office.
Oh, it's a wonderful time to talk about writers in South Carolina and throughout the nation, to encourage young people to write more and to dig deep inside and to create screenplays and novels and poetry. We're glad to have you here.
Absolutely, Mary. And to think about last month's conference, it was truly a treat to have all those folks in Myrtle Beach.
Representatives from so many states and marvelous writers and Hollywood producers here to work one-on-one with everyone.
Mary, you've had an expansive career. What are some of the jobs that you've held, and how did they bring you to your role as a public relations counselor?
In preparing to become a public relations counselor, I worked as a TV reporter, radio reporter, newspaper, magazine reporter, and writer and editor. And did other things too. Worked on Capitol Hill for Strom Thurmond, Senator Strom Thurmond. Everybody in South Carolina has probably worked for him at one time or another, anybody over 21 years old, and learned so much about the political system. So my political background really helped me develop a career in public relations along with my journalistic background.
Absolutely. Well, obviously we're here in your offices today to talk about another of your interests, Mary Eaddy, the author, and surely the South Carolina Writers Workshop. Are you a member of the workshop?
I am. The South Carolina Writers Workshop is a great group that holds workshops periodically across the state of South Carolina to encourage young people, retirees, and anybody who's interested in writing to publish and to produce plays and screenplays.
Does someone have to be an author to be a member of the South Carolina Writers Workshop?
Absolutely not. We have attorneys, we have bankers, we have teachers, people from many different professions who would like to learn more about writing.
What are some of the activities that are organized by the group? You said about all over South Carolina. What are some of the activities that are regularly organized?
Well, we have small group support in various towns, such as Florence, Charleston, Myrtle Beach, Darlington, different areas. So if anybody's interested in joining a small group, they need to get onto our website, which is www.scwriters.com, and look at who's leading the workshops in those areas and contact them for small group support. And that's probably our biggest mainstay year-round. We also have the annual conference in Myrtle Beach. We look forward to that every year. It's a blockbuster. We have people who come from all over the nation to participate in that. Sandra Brown was with us last year, and then this year we had a number of people from Hollywood to join us, and we're just so glad that they were able to be here.
Now, has Mary Eaddy benefited from the South Carolina Writers Workshop?
Greg, it has been a wonderful opportunity for me to expand my writing career from journalism to fiction. When my New York editor was a no-show one year, a friend of mine said, walk into Gwen Hunter's fiction writing workshop and learn about writing fiction. I said, I'm a journalist. I don't write fiction. But lo and behold, I went in, and Gwen was fabulous. 2 weeks later, I started my first novel, and an agent now has that in New York. It's a political and romantic suspense novel, and he's trying to sell it now. So yes, it has been a wonderful turn of fate to become involved with the South Carolina Writers Workshop.
Mary, we've got about a minute left, and I'm so glad you mentioned Gwen Hunter. Tell us a little bit about Gwen and how you all met, and of course you mentioned that a second ago, but a little bit about the books that she writes.
Gwen Hunter is from Rock Hill, South Carolina, and she writes medical thrillers. She's had many books do well not only in America, but throughout the world. And she is a very, very talented writer and very supportive of new writers. Gwen conducts workshops across South Carolina for the South Carolina Writers Workshop, but she's also president of the Southeastern chapter of the Mystery Writers of America.
Great. Mary, thanks so much for giving us the opportunity to get her here today. Stay tuned to Gwen Hunter coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome back to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Wordsmith on Oak Street in Myrtle Beach. We're focused on the 13th annual South Carolina Writers Workshop Writing Conference, which was held last month at the Ocean Creek Resort. And we're visiting with Gwen Hunter, an internationally acclaimed author. Good morning, Gwen.
Thank you for having me here.
Thanks so much for just being with us today, to think of that, and obviously to focus on last month's conference.
Yes.
About 5 weeks ago, to think of all the folks from all over the country in.
Great conference, a really good conference. In fact, it's one of the best of its kind. It's a small conference so that the writers have an opportunity to talk with the published writers, to talk with the agents, the editors who are here, and it's an opportunity that I would have given a pinky for, or maybe more, maybe a left arm, back when I was first trying to get published and didn't know what I was doing. So this is a chance for writers to mingle, to network, and to learn the business of writing.
Well, Gwen, it was so exciting hearing Mary talk about the opportunity of experience one of your fiction writers workshops at one point, I guess a number of years ago, which really gave her the bug to move forward in a new exciting entree in her life.
Well, she said, "I'm not a writer." And I said, "Yes, you are." She said, "No, I don't write fiction." I said, "Yes, you do. You just don't know it yet." Because all of us are storytellers. All of us have something in our past or something in our family history. All of us remembered sitting at Grandpa's knee or an uncle's knee or watching, I don't know, Mayberry on television and picking up these stories that become a part of our lives, and then we share them. And to a great extent, that's what being a writer is about, is sharing the story.
And it's so important. Oftentimes, fiction, albeit so many times, it's important to be able to get a real story out, to be able to get that out to an audience.
It is, because even in any kind of fiction, there are some really basic human themes going on. In the midst of my own writing with woman in jeopardy thrillers or medical thrillers, there's always the underlying theme of friendship and what one woman will do to protect her child or to protect her friend. So there's a lot of underlying human stories that we tell in fiction and that we pull out from our own histories or our family histories.
How exciting. Gwen, about yourself, where are you from originally?
I was born in Louisiana. Can't you tell from the accent? It's just a little bit different from around here.
The Palmetto States had a sway on you.
Yes, they did. I've lived in South Carolina for so many years that we won't say how many years I've lived here. Moved here when I was a child, and have absolutely loved this state from the very beginning. Love Myrtle Beach. Come to the beach all the time. I'm a motorhome rat.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of amazing family campgrounds along the Strand. You think about them, some of the greatest, of course, so many of the national awards come to the Myrtle Beach area for the family campgrounds.
There are rallies at these campgrounds down here, and you can, for those who go online and get in touch with the different clubs, there are motorhome clubs, and Myrtle Beach is a huge stopping point.
Absolutely.
For them, but I just come down here to be lazy.
Gwen, share with the viewers your first experience with writing and how it developed into a passion to become a novelist.
Well, first I liked to read all of my life. I was in love with the written word because I was very shy, and the idea of entering someone else's world where they solved all their own problems was very cool to me when I was a teenager. But I was also a very untalented person in a very talented family. My mother is one of these disgusting people who can sing like an angel, sew anything she wants to, make window treatments, paint anything. She's a portraitist. I mean, she can do anything. It was just disgusting to grow up. I can hardly write my name legibly. And I lived with this perfect angel of a woman, and my father's this great engineer, and he's a mathematician and an athlete. And here I was, born first daughter with no talents. So when my 10th grade teacher sat me down in our first student-teacher conference and said, "Oh, Gwen, you have a talent for writing. You should make writing your career." It was like being etched in stone. I had a talent. It was my only talent, and I was so excited. And being my father's daughter, I decided, well, I have to research. So I immediately started taking the Writer's Digest magazine and going through all of the how-to-write books at the library. That's the engineer part, you know. I knew how to do that. And I learned that the writing life is very different from the kind of life that a 9-to-5 job has, and that I also needed a 9-to-5 job to support me. And I went to York Tech in the Piedmont, and I got a medical laboratory degree to support me. So I have at least 1 year and 3 months left in that field before I make the decision if I'm going to be brave and retire and just write, or if I'm going to be chicken and keep the 9-to-5 as well as being a writer.
Some big decisions ahead.
Yeah.
Well, what about that first success? Tell us how a chance meeting began a new chapter in your life.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I had, sitting in the emergency room, 2 o'clock in the morning, drinking a cup of coffee. I looked up, and there's this really gorgeous 6'2" cop standing at the desk talking to the ER doctor, and he was saying, "I want to write a book when I retire from being a cop." Well, immediately my ears go up. I am listening. I'm right there. I brought a manuscript, a short story that I had done previously and won an award on, a short story award. And I said, "Here, I want you to read this." And Gary read the short story. When he got to the bottom, he said, "This has your name on it." I said, "Yeah." He said, "You wrote this?" I said, "Yes, I did." He said, "We need to talk." I said, "I have a feeling we need to talk." "Yes, we do." And the first words we put on paper for our novel became our first novel that sold to Warner Books. It was so bizarre. It went out on a Monday in the mail. On Friday, a very young, up-and-coming editor at Warner Books took it home with him, and the following Monday he called and bought the book. Which doesn't happen anymore. So, I mean, it really doesn't. They don't go to the slush pile room. They don't do anything along that line. They only work with agents now. But I got in under the line when they were still doing slush pile work, and they were doing their own reading. So I was really very blessed. That's sort of a miracle publication story, especially by today's standards.
It sounds like that same 10th grade teacher who told you have a gift for writing.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And if let's say another 10th grader was talking to you and they said, "Gwen, what kind of books do you write?" What would be a short answer to that?
I write Woman in Jeopardy novels, and I write medical thrillers. This is my latest. It's
Deadly Remedy.
Deadly Remedy.
Deadly Remedy.
And it's in the Ray Lynch series. There'll be 4 at least in that series.
Great.
Isn't this a stunning cover?
Yeah, hold
That's
that
the
up a
next
little bit.
book.
Grave
with
Concerns.
Grave Concerns.
A race between life and death.
Yeah.
How fascinating. Keith Setry, our technical director, would be very interested in that.
Does he like medical thrillers?
Oh, absolutely.
He likes thrillers.
Very definitely.
I like thrillers where the woman kills her own snakes and solves her own burdens and doesn't, stay tied to the tracks until Dudley Do Right cuts her loose. I want her to have her own little Swiss Army knife, and she's chopping away at those ropes, and she gets out all by herself.
Wow.
Yeah, my characters
exciting.
try to be very independent.
Well, how about that medical angle? How have you been able to keep the story true to fact and realistic?
Well, I've got now X number of years, nearly 30 years of experience.
Oh, no, you're kidding.
No, really, in the medical laboratory field, and it's in a small hospital, very similar to what my medical thriller character, Ray Lynch, works in. So it's in a tiny little rural hospital, and I abuse the nurses and the doctors, I'll be honest with you. I'm quite shameless. I'll walk up to a doctor and I'll say, "Okay, I have a question. You're an internist, so here's what I want to know. You're in the emergency room. I want my character to have to be, I don't know, doped up tremendously so they'd get knocked out. What condition could they have that would do that to them so that we have to knock them out?" And the doctors will walk me through and they'll say, "Do I get credit?" Yeah, you get credit.
Yeah.
It goes in the front of the book.
How exciting, Gwen.
So they've been extremely gracious. In fact, if I'm having one of those odd writing moments at 2 o'clock in the morning, I will call them and I'll say, I need to know the advanced life support order because I need to know when you give this drug or that drug. Could you fax it to me? What are you writing now?
Oh no!
And then I get to share, and so they fax stuff to me. I couldn't do it without my coworkers. I really couldn't.
How
it would
exciting.
be very difficult.
That is wonderful. And this is up in the Rock Hill area of South Carolina.
Yes, in Rock Hill, South Carolina.
How exciting, Gwen. You were recognized for your first solo novel. Can you share with the viewers a little bit about the book and the award that it garnered for you?
Betrayal was... I had been trying so hard to find an independent subject to write about once I stopped writing with my co-writer. And Betrayal sort of took hold in me as a concept. A woman, how far would a woman go to protect her children? What rules would she break? What laws would she break? How important is it to keep our children safe? And I got caught up in this book, not really expecting that it would grab my agent the way it did and grab my editor the way it did. My agent was so excited. The book was unfinished. I had less than 50 pages written. He took 30 pages with him to Germany when he went for the European market, their booksellers convention, and he sold it to 3 countries over there before it was finished, before it was sold in the United States, and he had to take it off the market because it was getting more buzz than he wanted me to get. Or too early.
Yes.
And it sold to 5 foreign countries. It sold in the United States, and it won the W.H. Smith First Novel Award in England.
Exciting.
I got to go over to London and be wined and dined and meet dukes and royalty, and it was very exciting.
Time.
Yeah, it was.
Fantastic. Golly, well, there's so many more questions I want to ask. We've only got 7 or 8 minutes. Into how many languages have your books been translated, and how do you ensure that it stays true to the original manuscript?
Now, that last part, I don't have a lot of control over.
Because you don't speak 100 languages.
I don't speak them, that's right. But what I have had, I've had the Finnish interpreter and the French interpreter of Delayed Diagnosis, which is the first Ray Lynch novel. They have emailed me, and they'll say, all right, what do these initials mean? And what is this condition? Because it's not in the medical dictionary I went to get. It's not in our French one, so it must have another name. And the interpreters work very hard. It's important to them to stay true. That's a high calling, I think, to change a book from one language to another, because if they're not good, if they don't put the effort into it, it loses the nuances that language gives the storytelling effort. And I think right now we're standing at 10 foreign countries.
Wow.
Yeah. The Finnish was a surprise. That was new.
Yeah.
I just found out about the Finnish. And it's in Singapore, New Zealand, Australia,
How exciting,
Germany.
Gwen.
Yeah,
Golly, that is fantastic.
It's very exciting.
Now, does one book lead you to an idea for another? And do you oftentimes possibly have more than one project on at any one time?
I don't do projects in the sense of writing down the ideas. I might put one line down to sort of keep a concept or an idea fresh in a little journal that I keep on my computer. But normally, with the medical thrillers, it's the characters that flow through, and they've become so real to me that instead of having different projects going, I know what's going to happen in their personal lives. And then when I build the structure of the medical thriller on top of that, it has it comes alive in ways that let me view it as a long-range project. So I don't do individual projects, but I think of Ray Lynch as a lifetime.
Yeah.
So that's been fun. I've never had that opportunity.
That is huge. That is fantastic. Gwen, what's the best thing about being a writer?
When those characters come alive, when they start doing things that I didn't know they were going to do, when they reveal parts of their past that I didn't plan on, didn't have any indication was going to happen. I didn't know when I first started writing Ray Lynch that her mother was going to be a manic depressive, alcoholic, a single parent with severe problems. I didn't know that. That came out of Ray. Ray told me that. And that was a gift. So that's the fun part of writing. The bad part is the weight gain. Because you do the weight gain. Because all you do is sit there.
Give me a break.
No,
That's
really.
crazy.
We have 20 pounds here. That's why the shawl covers everything up so carefully.
It's a rock.
But you do nothing but sit.
Yeah.
You sit in front of a computer and you write until sometimes your legs go numb, and then you think, it really is time to get up and walk around the block.
Wow.
And then you sit at signings, and you sit on the way to signings, and so avoiding writer's backside is something that most writers really have to work at.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned being on the road a little bit. Are you on the road a great deal of the time?
A lot.
And how important are personal appearances to the success of an author?
Well, for me, being on the road is a chance to meet booksellers and to make new fans. So that's a gift to be able to walk into a bookstore, pick up your book off the shelf, walk up front and say, "Hi, this is my book. It's on your shelf. I'm Gwen Hunter, and thank you. Thank you for having me there." And you make personal contacts that way that you can't do over the internet or by telephone calls. You have to walk into a bookstore and visit with the owner and visit with the booksellers, visit with the people in charge. And then you get to meet fans, people who are standing in the store. And sometimes you'll do an official signing. I like the drive-by signings myself, though. Or you just go into a store, sign and sell all of their stock, and boogie on down the road to the next store. But it's very important. And I probably spend 3 months, 4 months a year on the road.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that motorhome gets a lot of mileage.
Yes, very definitely. And I'm glad you mentioned the internet, even though that can't be the vehicle to get everything done, and obviously you have to get out on the road. You still have a really progressive website. Is it GwenHunter.com?
GwenHunter.com.
Okay, great.
And for people who are looking for information about how to become a writer, looking for websites that can help them, if they write mysteries, mysterywriters.org.
Okay, mystery.
No dots, no spaces, mysterywriters.org. And scwriters.com is for writers of all types, all genres, and that will tie them directly into the South Carolina Writers Workshop. That's that wonderful conference that we all got to attend. And that is annual, by the way, so people can come next year. It's always held here at Myrtle Beach.
Great.
Mainly because you can really get a lot of editors and agents to come down from New York when you say, it's right on the beach.
I love it,
and
yes.
they are really excited to come to South Carolina, to the beach, for a writers' conference. And then there's SEMWA.com, SEMWA, that's the Southeast Mystery Writers of America, of which I'm the president. So there are a lot of writer sites out there.
We've got 2 minutes, Gwen. What are some of the techniques and lessons that you share with potential writers? Just let them get a feel of what it's like.
It's all basic stuff to start out, because you have to kind of feel out where your audience is, where your writer audience is. But the main thing that we all forget to do is to write what we know. Someone will have a scene with a cop, and the cop doesn't sound like a cop because they didn't sit down and talk with a cop and do their research. Or they'll have a scene in a hospital room where a patient, for instance, is left alone when they're unconscious, and that doesn't happen. So there are things that people need to do really good research on, and writing what you know is very important, and then making it full of action, telling the story through the character's eyes, not through the writer's eyes.
Yes.
Is the most important thing.
Gwen, lastly, what is the single most important thing for an aspiring writer to know? Is it just what you said, or is there anything that really stands out, the single most important thing?
Finish your novel. Don't try to market it until you have finished your novel. That's the first thing. And the second thing is know your genre, know your market. Know what it is you're trying to sell. Do your research. take PW. Pick it up at your library. Publishers Weekly can tell you so much about the market. Learn the English language. So many people use poor grammar, poor English when they write, and you're never going to be published. Dialect is one thing. We all say ain't. But dialect is acceptable, but when you're doing the narrative part, make sure that your English, your punctuation, and your spelling are all top notch.
You heard her say it. The excitement for Mary Eaddy was hearing Gwen Hunter tell her that she's a writer before she even knew it. Of course, the daughter of amazing parents, having not found out she had a talent till the 10th grade, and then a chance meeting with a 6'2" cop gave her the opportunity to become a superstar. Gwen, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. We want to thank Mary Eaddy and Gwen Hunter for making today's Carolina People so special.